Welcome, everybody, back to Let's Take 5, the podcast where we look at one of the greats of cinema and we discuss their excellence and range. My name is Ray Martindale.
I'm Austin Luker.
And today we are carrying on with our Jodie Foster 5. The previous films we covered are Taxi Driver, The Accused, Silence of the Lambs, Maverick, and today we are wrapping up with Contact. Contact is based on the Carl Sagan novel with the same name. I haven't read the book, Austin, have you?
I really want to.
Yeah, I've heard they're very different, but I would like to read the book as well, as I've enjoyed Carl Sagan's other works. But basically, it's the story about a young girl who lost her mother in childbirth, grew up with her father. Her father and her helped fuel her. He's a good dad, you know. He supports her hobbies and that sort of thing. And her hobby was basically looking up at the stars and tracking radio waves and whatnot. Father also dies at a young age, but her passion carries on. She works with the SETI program, which is a real thing, where we're monitoring for extraterrestrial life and signals being bounced around space and whatnot. And she does this for a living, trying to listen to see if she can hear, E.T. So she does this, and she hears something, and from there, the plot explodes rather rapidly into this sequence where, who's going to get to travel in this pod that was beamed down for us to make, and who's going to go visit the aliens, and yada, 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 and then it wraps up at the very end. She goes on the adventure, and she comes back. I don't know. I'm trying to summarize this movie, but it's 2 hours and a half, and it's thick.
It is, and to me, that is actually part of its charm. Mm-hmm. This did not hold up as well for me this time around. We're going to get into that. But what did hold up so well for me, especially in comparison to a movie I didn't like very much, which is Arrival, which is you see the work being put in. And I really like it when you see people at the top of their field doing the work. So I really like that for a movie that is ending with possibly traveling through, light speed to unknown creatures, she's having to get satellites in South America. She has to kind of work on this. She has to work on this for a while. Like, she isn't just like the genius who's brought in the last second. No, she's the one who's doing the work. In fact, she's the one who, after being denied funding elsewhere, she's still doing it. And it's nice. And like, even when things are being discovered and the message is being worked on.
Which is probably a half hour into the film or 40 minutes into the film. I mean, it's late.
And the way they kind of, explain the work, on one hand, as an adult, some things are too obviously explained. It's insane that she has to explain what a prime number is to a high-up government official. Mm-hmm. But as a kid, that never bothered me because this is one of those kind of great movies, much like Apollo 13, where you just everyone can enjoy it because you're seeing that. And I really admired that part. What didn't work so well is the other major part of the movie, beyond the scientific work, the scientific method. The movie has a lot to say about religion. And you know this because Matthew McConaughey explains this to her. The whole movie.
And Rob Lowe to a lesser extent.
Yes, yeah. And
it has a lot of disparaging things to say about religion, definitely, in my opinion.
It does.
I think this is a very deeply anti-religious movie.
But then at the very end says that it isn't.
Which doesn't mean that it was.
And so I when I was younger, I really thought that they gelled well of science and religion kind of coexisting. And, he has his point of view, she has her point of view. The answer is somewhere in the middle, and that's how the film wants you to think it works. It doesn't. They tried so hard to make this character, who is a respected religious figure, but who's not tied to a certain faith. He just doesn't fit in the world.
He doesn't fit at all.
Him on Larry King was awful.
Every time, Larry King was awful.
Yeah,
it's the worst interviewer ever. But anytime Matthew McConaughey's on screen in this film, except for in the first half hour, I don't know why he's there. I don't know. I mean, I'm not the President of the United States, but I don't know about... I mean, Bill Clinton is the President of the United States. Bill Clinton could have been Bill in this movie. Bill Clinton is in this movie a lot.
And apparently, they weren't thrilled with that.
Yeah?
Yeah, I read the summary on Wikipedia of the controversy afterwards, and Zemeckis said, yeah, we gave you all these dailies. Like, we took clips from previous speeches and tied them in this movie. And they still were not thrilled with the president being tied into a commercial product. And that never happened again, thankfully. So we're okay.
Well, anyway,
but Bill, the same guy who made Forrest Gump.
Right.
You see how the technology works.
Exactly. So Bill Clinton's in this movie a lot, but what I was saying, the original point was that I don't presume to know what's on the president's council, but why are all these religious people, like, and by I say religious people, I don't mean that they believe in God. What I mean is they're religious people. This guy's interviewing on Larry King. You got the Rob Lowe guy who's the member of the Congressional House Religious something another. I don't know, but they're in the president's council, like the top 6 aides is what it seems like, and you're wondering why are they here? Is this real?
Right.
Is this the real world? Because this seems to, and I as kind of the non Carl Sagan expert on the podcast, I mean, I've read a lot of his work. I've read Pale Blue Dot and Cosmos, but I think what he wanted, and I know Carl Sagan was dead by the time this movie came out, but what Carl Sagan probably wanted with the novel and what the movie didn't achieve was some sort of semblance and balance of both. Both. Why can't these two things coexist? Carl Sagan was not a religious person himself, and he always kind of avoided saying he was an atheist for the sheer fact that it would seem pretentious to pretend he knew otherwise, but he was not a religious man. But he always wrote about how you can't deny the fact that particularly the Western world, but in particular the United States, is a deeply religious country. So these two things have to coexist with each other. And I think that's what the movie should have been about, and then tried to pretend it was about by the end.
And there are moments earlier when I thought it worked for a half second, because there was there's a long sequence where they're selecting who's going to go in this experiment. And we'll get into part of it later, but there is an argument to be made that someone says that like 65% of this world has a strong belief.
He said 95%.
9%.
Yeah.
Which is like, if we're going to have one person represent the planet, shouldn't that person believe in some sort of higher power? And actually,
that's a good argument.
That's a really good argument made. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the issue with the kind of the science and faith back and forth, first of all, their conversations are extremely surface level and lame, and not really connecting to their characters. It's just kind of the typical like, oh, does science kill God? Oh, what was it's really
very generic, basic
101. Like, these are top of their field. They should be having better conversations than this.
Mm-hmm. Well, they don't know what a prime number is, so
no, they have to explain that.
Yeah,
but then there was a lot of the arguments will have to be then connected to their characters, and then the characters succeed based on their actions. And we see throughout the whole film that Jodie Foster is extremely good at her job. She is incredibly moral, generous, very smart, and very passionate about these things, and not corrupted. So we're seeing her arguments through that character. Matthew McConaughey, part of it is performance-based, where he's the smuggest dude in the world. I mean, he's dressed like the stereotypical image of Matthew McConaughey at the beginning in South America, that he's on Larry King, but then he does an action that's so... It makes sense on one hand, but then he admits how cruel it is, which is he basically gets her kicked off the mission because he doesn't want her to go, which removes the decision from her. So now you're watching this shithead, and to have these important arguments tied with him is not fair for the argument, and that hurts the film a lot. That especially also that this film is also saying they are very much in love. Yeah, but and that romance never worked for me.
Never earns it. I mean, they get together in South America on the original mission where it was a similar SETI mission. She's trying to listen to see, see if she can hear little green men, as she quotes it. And all the dialogue was neat there, and it worked. Actually, I think it was probably the best part of the movie.
Alien, the whole movie.
What?
They avoid saying alien, a lot.
Yeah, they do.
It has to be very rare in the script.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm not sure. But anyway, he's there very conveniently. And I think their dialogue works. They sleep together. It all kind of works. He's had some sort of connection with her from there, and we're just supposed to since then, because that was 4 years prior to the main chunk of the movie, and we're just supposed to believe that. There's another weird scene right after this. So the funding gets pulled on their South America thing. She got to go get funding elsewhere, and she's in a board meeting with someone. And they're saying, listen, we need to look for extraterrestrial life. And they say, no, we're not going to give you money. And so she goes, we need to look for extraterrestrial life. And they go, fine, you got your money. That scene was lame. You could have. It makes me wonder what was the point of it. But part of the point of it, which I think is completely missed, is there was a lot Carl Sagan was trying to talk here about, trying to get funding, and trying to get funding from a government that doesn't believe in science like they should believe in science. I mean, Carl Sagan had a great quote where he says, every newspaper has an astrology column. All of them do. And it's bunked. It's bullshit. It's total bullshit. How many of these newspapers have a daily science column? None of them. So why is that? And so this is the type of... We're talking about people who have all the money that don't believe in the science anyway, or don't care about the science. They're either doing it for one, profit, or two, to build missiles. That was what I said was the ironic part of saying we came in peace for all mankind when they landed on the moon, because the same technology that put us on the moon was the same technology that led us able to launch nuclear weapons. So it's usually they have to be tied to something like that, either defense or money or whatnot. And I think that's the struggle they're trying to put forth here. But it's just lame.
So
it's just lame.
I thought for this film, I actually sided with the government a lot in a really interesting way.
That's interesting.
I didn't know if it was because I'm now getting older and more cynical, but until the last 20 minutes, I actually thought James Woods had a lot of really good points of a counterbalance.
Well, he goes full villain in the last 20 minutes.
Out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere.
She did a new character. It was insane. But it's like they make an interesting point. This is the device they're making costs like $6 trillion. It's the most expensive project in the history of the planet. And they secretly built two of them.
That was dumb.
Yes, it was. But also, I kind of dug it because, America fucking over the UN. So I did enjoy that element. But you had the same because, I just kind of imagined Congress. We have a definite message from space. We have a blueprint. We have to build it. But when it blows up, I really kind of thought, I know she's eventually going to go there, but I can't fathom a world where you'd build it twice. You agree this is an important venture, but would you build it for their $6 trillion? That's when you would get real interesting congressional hearings saying, no, we have to do this. But James Woods is the typical, I'm going to be the government guy in the room, eyeing all this, national security. When they uncover that this little audio clip also has a Hitler speech in it, the government's right to go, we need to fucking look at this. Because if you had a message from space that brought you back Hitler, I think the government was worthy to freak out a little bit.
Yeah, that was pretty. I thought that was pretty cool because the movie opens with a really cool sequence where anyone who's into science or astronomy at all knows that radio waves don't just disappear when we send them into space. They continue to travel, and they'll continue to travel forever. And there's this really cool tracking shot that starts at the Earth with the most recent, FM music, and as it slowly pulls away, all of a sudden we're hearing stuff from the 90s and the 80s. And we get out by Jupiter and we're hearing stuff from the 50s. We get out by Saturn, we're literally hearing stuff from the 30s and so on, which is really cool. Now, the aliens pick up the Hitler speech from the 30s or early 40s.
It was the opening Olympic.
Oh, it was that's
games,
right.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
So it's before it was it wasn't a Hitler speech. It was Hitler giving a speech to open the German games.
Right, and it was still the Nazi party.
Oh yeah,
so,
it was still Hitler's still a bad dude.
Yeah, this is before Hitler, that plot twist.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, and then so they're sending the signal back, and I thought that was all really neat. In fact, there are times in this movie where Robert Zemeckis shows that he is a good director.
The movie is beautiful.
Yeah, it's really beautiful to look at, and some of the actual shot composition is incredible. There's a sequence later where we go through a mirror, and it's just, I don't know, it's neat.
A lot of
shots.
sound and sound stopping suddenly.
Yes.
Sound
works great in this film.
It was the only Oscar nomination it had. Was for sound.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so it's stunning because also it's a movie that knows that 2001 exists, and it almost sucks it does because what else are you going to do these shots for? But yeah, it's such a... Sometimes, like, Zemeckis just totally gets it right. And I go, like, maybe I'm being too harsh in this film. Like, when you see the experiment fail, that whole, like, disaster sequence is, like, stunning to me.
No, you're right. And looking at, even for the technology at the time, I mean, the movie was made in 97, 96, it doesn't look cheap and fake. It looks like a miracle of science when you're looking at it. And when it explodes, it's horrifying.
Well, because, like, it's pieces falling apart. Mm-hmm. They're all supposed to be just moving. So it's watching just disaster upon disaster happen, and it's just painful.
It works, too, I think, because there's no disaster porn in the movie. The movie's pretty quiet for the most part. It's about science. So when something explodes like this, it feels more real. You know, you have a visceral reaction to it. And maybe that's just because Jake Busey blew it up. I don't know.
Jake Busey, yeah.
You can't trust that guy. He kills someone in every movie.
He does. But, I mean, all the beauty of this movie is because, and I'm going to tie this to Jodie Foster now, the movie really, really wants to be inspirational, and I think, despite having problems with the script, that still works for me. Because when you see all these satellites, it's no longer just, like, junk in a field. It means something. It means we are pursuing something for the sake of pursuing. And the kind of beauty towards just science, not to fix a problem, but to expand our knowledge.
Yeah.
Was lovely, and they had that so many times, and Jodie Foster has to embody that while also still being like a group leader, a respected person. Like, she can't just be like, oh, I have a dream. Like, she's doing these things, and you want to follow her, and you want to listen to her, and you want her to be in charge, because she's the one who's not cynical about the whole project, and she never ever played that as naive. I think that was very important.
And I'm sure it's similar in the book. I mean, these are the problems Carl Sagan had to deal with. Mm-hmm. I mean, what you could say, we're doing this for the sake of science, and then someone's going to say, oh, how much does it cost? Well, it costs this much. Well, is science worth that much? What other benefits do we get out of it? And then you could say there is no greater benefit than the pursuit of knowledge and the pursuit of truth. And this is the stuff that he dealt with throughout his entire life as an astronomer. And as an astrophysicist, as so many things. And so she's sort of his hopes and dreams, I think, on the page. The struggles she deals with, I think, are very real issues. Issues about, red tape for science, and also a resistance to evidence that is provided by science, which is obviously just as prevalent today, if not more so. And ultimately, and it always sounds ridiculous when you say something like this, the ultimate idea and goal, because humans have always been wanderers from forever. I mean, we're wanderers, we're nomads, whatever. The next place to wander is space, and it seems ridiculous, but this movie puts it into very real terms. The idea of eventually, no matter what, you have to leave Earth. And that sounds crazy to people especially people that are going to have to fit the bill for such projects. But it's not a problem necessarily a problem tomorrow. It's just so much it's a problem for humanity. It's something that's going to have to be reached. And all these hopes and dreams and the idea of discovering intelligent life and whatnot, and the government red tape and the battles he has to fight, it's all just too much for the weight of the film. And ultimately, it doesn't really succeed at telling one good story here. I think all of it, the whole movie changes almost from scene to scene on what it's actually wanting to preach about. And the only thing that really comes across is that religion's bad. And there is an argument to be made. The movie doesn't do that, especially towards the end. But this is 2 hours and a half. And I don't think that's what Carl Sagan would have wanted either.
I'm really curious to read the book, because I can tell the film wants a better balance, because after she goes on this incredible...
Real fast, he literally wrote a book about striking that balance, I believe, called The Demon Haunted World. That's a Carl Sagan book, where it is about trying to deal with people that are religious and versus, people that are in science and how those things need to coexist. It's not just Richard Dawkins, like, God delusion stuff. It's actual, like, realistic stuff. Like, people are going to believe in God. That is an obstacle, maybe, for some pursuits. But you have to coexist with these people, particularly if they're paying for whatever project you want. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
But it's an interesting ending, and from what I understand, it is a different ending than the book, but she goes on this incredible adventure.
And it is incredible. That's really cool.
It's stunning. It's awesome. Once again, I love that Jodie Foster keeps using fear in her performances so well. Like, it reminded me of Clarice when, like, there's nowhere else she wants to be, but it doesn't mean this isn't scary right now, as the whole thing is shaking and she is seeing things that no one's ever seen before.
I'm ready to go.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. That was a great Jodie Foster. Like, her, like, trying to, like, go through the audio madness, saying, like, press the button, drop me. We'll get to something else later, but she comes back, and because it looks like from their eyes it was instantaneous, in order to fully believe her, you have to also have faith that it happened.
Right.
So that's what the ending's waiting to go with, which is the answer is science and faith blended together. She saw what she saw.
It's a little ham-fisted.
Oh, it's all the science faith is ham-fisted.
Yeah.
But as her lawyer, I would have said, if she made this up, why would she make up her dad into the story?
Yeah.
Like, she gave all the details. No, she can make up a better story than she saw her dad and he told her a few things and she went home. But it's beautiful because there's an idea early on that, like, you're sometimes pursuing science for the sake of, like, what you can't find, like, within yourself. And the argument's being made, and she happened to have it both at the end, like, through science and through a success this moment, she's able to have more emotional clarity through the beauty and the pain she has with her family. It's really beautiful, and the actor playing her dad, David Morse, is fantastic in it.
He's good in everything.
He's always good.
I love that guy. I love that guy.
Yeah.
He's incredible in the John Adams miniseries where he plays Washington. He's incredible.
He's awesome in Treme.
He's great in Green Mile. The guy's literally pops up everywhere. He's really good.
Good in that bad Rear Window ripoff.
Disturbia. He's great in The Langoliers, which is the worst made-for-TV miniseries ever. That Stephen King.
I just saw him really young in something. I don't know. Listen to all the Immortals. I think I saw him.
He's great. Yeah. I love him when he pops up.
He's always great. So there's something there, and I like the way in the ridiculous hearing scene that Jodie Foster kind of comes to that realization while always being, like, still professional on the mic, giving her testimony, but, like, recognizing that, like, this still means something, and maybe it's my purpose here to fail, but it's my purpose to say what I saw faithfully. So it is this kind of science thing, and to have her still continue, still don't fully think that, like, she needs to tell the kid at the end, like, what do you believe?
Yeah.
No, you saw light aliens.
I thought that was dumb too. It sure did.
But man, like, she's just so good in this thing, and yeah, I don't.
No, she's great. She is fantastic in this film. In fact, she's probably the only person other than David Morse I really like in the film. I thought that Tom Skerritt gives an interesting performance as David Drumlin. He's the guy that is sort of like always been funding her projects and whatnot, and always thought she was brilliant. One thing that was really cool that they didn't explore is that she was in front of Congress giving testimony about whether or not some special committee, I don't know if it's Congress, but some congressional committee of some kind, seeing whether, evaluating whether she should go, and he was the other guy in the running, and she said no. She didn't deny she didn't believe in God, but everyone knew by the end of it she didn't. And then he just flat out lied and said he did.
Yeah.
That actually was kind of neat, and then it's kind of dropped really quickly.
Well, they do one more thing where they're on the launch day, and he kind of comes up to her and says, it's a dog-eat-dog world out there. And, like, it's a little cheesy, but I liked it ultimately because it felt like a more realistic character.
Yeah, well...
and so, like, when this is happening, when he ultimately dies in the disaster, again, there is the faith, like, was that always going to happen?
Yeah.
It's interesting elements.
That I do. And that's to say, I think that's kind of interesting. And I think it's interesting from this perspective of, like, scientists, like, coming out of the closet to say, I don't believe in God, which is a much bigger deal in 1996 than it is now, when literally, if you read the comments on a YouTube video, no one on the planet believes in God. So, like, you know, it's and people go out of their way to trash religion. You know, which has always been kind of weird to me too, and I don't think in the vein of people that they support, like a Carl Sagan, necessarily wants or intends as well.
No.
The idea of a militant or an extremist in anything, a religion or not, is just it doesn't make things copacetic. People are going to believe what they want to believe, and Carl Sagan knew that, and. So yeah. Anyway, but I thought that was interesting. You know, he plays Dallas in Alien, so I thought it was cool that he's involved in two big science fiction movies. But is it time to reveal?
Well, no. We're going to connect science fiction films.
Yeah.
There's a really weird reoccurring thing in McConaughey's filmography where
Interstellar too,
where he keeps signing up for interstellar missions and not knowing how time works. Well, because he's already signed up, and like in Interstellar and this, he was like, "Did you know like?" You come back 50 years later and it's only been like a year for you? Yeah. Everyone read the briefing.
You know, I think Austin's trying to work in his hate for Interstellar here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is a sentiment not shared by many.
Yeah. Maybe if you have a guy who goes into a giant space mission, he should I don't know how it works. He shouldn't be in space when he learns that his kids are going to be ancient when he gets back. I don't know. Things you should ask before
we're going. Okay, we have to talk about what we talked about.
We had our cliffhanger, where we randomly, in a review about Maverick,
oh my god,
said that there is a terrible performance, and we listed lots of actors in this film, and it is not Jake Busey. It is not Rob Lowe.
Not Gary, Jake Busey.
Sorry for using this.
No, actually, there's so many actors.
It's not John Hurt, although John Hurt goes bananas.
They could have cut that part from the movie. That guy does not exist on planet. Well, I guess he really doesn't in the movie. There's a guy, by the way, in Contact, floating around Earth, staying up in space because his cancer grows slower up there, and he's up there and he's controlling everything. Like, it's really like Inspector Gadget.
I honestly think, because I thought it was Leonard Nimoy for the first scene. So I think it's actually John Hurt pretending to be Leonard Nimoy to fuck with him.
Another guy from Alien, too.
Yeah.
So John Hurt, it's not Jake Busey.
Nope.
It's not Rob Lowe, even though Rob Lowe's terrible.
He is auditioning for West Wing. I mean, he's not doing much.
Go ahead and say it, Austin. He's so bad.
William Fichtner. William Fichtner, you probably know him from a number of things. He was in The Dark Knight, probably.
Yeah, he's in The Dark Knight.
He's the guy at the bank.
The bank that says, "You and your guys are dead," with a shotgun. He's the guy in Armageddon that runs the whole mission.
Yeah.
The dude, he pops up from time to time.
I think he had he was in one of those lost ripoffs, like on ABC.
You know him, when you see him, you know him. Michael Bay, I think, uses him quite a bit.
So one element I liked about the movie is that after the government stops funding Jodie Foster, and she has to get funding from other grants and whatnot, that means she has her own little ragtag crew. So when the government needs them, she gets still a ragtag crew. Fuck you guys, this is the dream team. We actually found aliens. So you got that one guy and then that person over there. And then you have William Fichtner, who
he's supposed to be blind.
Yeah, he's supposed to be blind, which I didn't know until I recognized he was holding a stick with the bit at the end.
Oh my god, you didn't know he was blind until that far into the film?
Yeah, because I thought... I'm watching him going...
What the fuck are you doing?
He is doing the worst version of Dustin Hoffman and Rain Man ever.
Okay, yeah, you would think because you're blind, that means that you're autistic, that you have Tourette's, that you have Parkinson's. Someone should have told William Fichtner, whatever it is, that being blind affects your eyes.
Yeah.
It affects your vision. Someone should have told him this. At first, it starts out subtly. You're like, is he going to be bad? And then, like, you watch him in a frame. He's pulling focus constantly. He's like...
But it's the mannerisms, but also because he's a mathematician, he thinks nerdy is autistic.
Yeah.
So you're watching him like, oh, yeah, that's the audio wave. Yeah, that's the audio wave. Like, oh, my God.
Why did he repeat it twice?
It is just over and over again, and... he seems to be like, bewildered that sound is around him, so he's like always moving his head like a crazy person. And also, he's magic because he can hear things that computers can't hear.
Yes, I know, that was ridiculous. There's kind of like a Deus Ex Machina at the end where he's like, I hear her, she's alive, because no one else can hear her.
And I would have said, again, the government's right for most of this film, which is, can we have a second opinion?
And can
we have this on audio?
Who gave this asshole a headset anyway?
Yeah, I mean, he works with her. we can't just press yes because he said that. And they did.
He is so terrible that so we've been doing this podcast for over a year.
Yeah.
In episode 60, both Austin and I unanimously agree this is the worst performance we've seen in any of the 60 movies we've covered.
He's in like 10 scenes in this 2.5-hour movie, and he makes them all worse. It is... And I like him. I've never seen him bad.
We're not even commenting on his acting ability. We're literally saying in this movie, someone told him that blind people are more than blind. There's
This feels like an independent choice. This feels like he made 3 choices of his character, and Zemeckis went, all right.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I work crisp and clever. This could work.
It's like, yeah, be weird and interesting.
Yeah.
But you're not. You're just... If I knew someone who was blind, I'd be insulted.
Yeah.
You know?
Which people.
Anyway.
It's crazy bad. Hopefully it's on YouTube. If not, we're putting it on YouTube. Like
it's got to be.
It's crazy. But that's
anyway, take us out of here.
That's it for part 5. We'll be back on Wednesday to wrap up Jodie Foster because she has way more movies than these 5. We're going to talk about them and also announce our next 5. Until then, you can tweet us at the Immortals Pod. You can email us at letstake5@theartimmortal.com. You can leave a comment at theartimmortal.com for this episode or any episode. Let us know what you think of Contact, Jodie Foster, and any of the films. Also, check out the other podcasts there, including The Immortals, where yesterday we had our 80th episode. Which is also fun because in that silly, nonsensical plot that happens between the reviews, we launch into space. Listen to the first 80
filming.
Yeah, I know. It's almost like we planned this, and we clearly didn't. But also, between launching into space, we reviewed The Birds, our first Hitchcock film, Bat Out of Hell, about Meatloaf, A Christmas Carol, which is apparently a kid's book, and The Singing Detective. Also, Adaptation's back with an episode about war games. The title is Tic-Tac-Doe, I Blew Up the Planet. And, yeah.
I love that you're covering a Christmas Carol and a Christmas book, the most famous of all Christmas literature, other than the Bible, if we count that as literature.
Yeah, probably the third after the Night Before Christmas.
Okay. Yeah, okay, those two together. In June.
Yeah.
That's what I love about it.
Because
nothing says Christmas like June.
There is so much proof that we truly use a random number generator on that show. Because, like when a new Star Wars film comes out, maybe we should review Star Wars that week. You know what we did instead? The Birth of a Nation. The week Force Awakens come out, we did The Birth of a Nation. So,
gosh, you guys have been doing this for a while, man. Force Awakens, that dates it.
We're so dated.
Oh, man.
But anyway, that's those podcasts. But where can we find you, Eric?
Constant Diversion is the YouTube channel. Check us out on there. I review video games on there, and I do a pretty damn good job of that. If I do say so myself.
And you do.
I do. I know.
All right.
I just said it.
On air.
This is no false modesty here.
No. All right, and that's it for this week. We'll catch you back on Wednesday for the Jodie Foster wrap-up. I'm Austin Luger.
I'm Eric Martindale.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
A nice presentation, Doctor. But while our foundation arm does have a mandate to support experimental programs, we must confess that your proposal seems less like science and more like science fiction.
Science fiction. Oh, you're right. It's crazy. In fact, it's even worse than that. Nuts. You want to hear something really nutty?
I heard of a couple guys that want to build something called an airplane. You know, you get people to go in it and they fly around like birds. It's ridiculous, right? Or what about breaking the sound barrier, or rockets to the moon, or atomic energy, or a mission to Mars? Science fiction, right? Look, all I'm asking is for you to just have the tiniest bit of vision, you know, to step back for 1 minute and look at the big picture, to take a chance on something that just might end up being the most profoundly impactful moment for humanity, for the history of history.